Hello dear friends, welcome back to Top Lesson for you friends. In this lecture we are going to discuss about the types of nephrons, right? So we know, let me write here my topic, that is types of nephrons, right? So in our kidneys we have two types of nephrons. One are called the medullary juxtaglomerular nephrons, others are called the cortical nephrons. So the first group are called the cortical nephrons, right? And what are cortical nephrons, I will tell you right now. The second group are called the juxtaglomerular nephrons. Juxtaglomerular nephrons, right? Or we call them medullary nephrons also. Now what is the difference between these two nephrons? There are lots of differences. These are small nephrons, these are long nephrons, and some other differences also there, but let me make a diagram here, and from that diagram we will clear all the doubts about the cortical nephrons and juxtaglomerular nephrons. So I will draw one loop of the kidney, and that loop we will discuss all that importance, right? So friends, you just consider that this is a very small part of your kidney, but we have what we have done, we have enlarged this part, right? So this, first of all, this is the outer part of your nephron. So this is the renal capsule, right friends? This is the renal capsule. Okay, then below the renal capsule, you have the renal cortex. So there we have the renal cortex. As I told you, I have enlarged some part of your kidney, right? So this is your renal. That part is the cortical part, or we call it, that is the cortex, right? So let me name it here, friends. This part is wholly solely the renal cortex, right? So CORTEX, this is cortex, right? And then this lower part is called medulla. So I will name it as, this is your renal medulla, right? So this is medulla, right? Now the medulla is divided into two zones, the outer zone and the inner zone. So let me clear that concept also. Cortex, medulla. The medulla is divided into what? It is divided into two zones, the outer zone and the inner zone. Now let us make it little bit here. For example, this is the outer zone, this is the inner zone. So let me clear it here also, like this, right? So this part is the outer zone of medulla, and this is the inner zone of your medulla, inner zone of medulla. So medulla is divided into an outer zone and an inner zone. Now let us see all the nephrons which are present in these important areas of the kidney. So first of all, there are the cortical nephrons. So the cortical nephrons are those nephrons which have their glomerulus near to renal capsule, or we call, they are these the glomerulus, or these nephrons are present in subcapsular area, right? So let me draw here another line, right? This area is your subcapsular area, right? Okay, let us name it. This is subcapsular area. Subcapsular area, or we call it subcapsular part. right? So the cortex, subcapsular part, and the cortical part, the medulla is divided into an outer zone and an inner zone. Now what will happen, this is a lobe of the kidney, very simplified lobe of the kidney. So what we have done a section. For example, if this is your kidney, so we have taken this part of the kidney, we have taken only this part of the kidney, and we have enlarged it here. Right now I hope you understand this diagram. So this whole magnified part is that part of the kidney. Okay, now let us see the first of all the cortical nephrons. So the cortical nephrons have their glomerulus near to the or far from medulla, near to cortex or subcapsular area. Now listen carefully, let me draw here one cortical nephron, right? So this is the glomerulus, right? Then there is the first convoluted part, right? There is this first convoluted part. Then what happens, there is the second convoluted part. You also know all these are towards the what, towards the subcapsular area or towards the cortex. Please keep it in mind that cortical nephrons are those nephrons which have their glomerulus near to the subcapsular part, right? So this is the first convoluted part, like this. The diagram should be very clear to you guys. This is first convoluted part. Then this is the descending limb of loop of Henle. What is this? This is the thick or descending limb of loop of Henle. Keep it in mind. And it comes a little bit down and goes to the outer zone of what? Outer zone of medulla. I hope you are clear now, right? And then it goes a little bit to the outer zone of medulla like this, and then it becomes thin. This is the loop of Henle, right? This is the loop of Henle, my friend. This is descending limb. Then what happens? Then it again becomes thick and goes upward. Again becomes thick and goes upward like this. So what will happen? It will go up again. So this is the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, right? Again it becomes thick, like look at this area. It's a little bit thinner. Why it is that like this? I will discuss it in the next lecture, the importance of that thin area, right? So this is the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Now there is the second convoluted part. There is the second convoluted part, right, like this. So the second convoluted part is very near to the afferent and efferent arterioles, right? And they will come out and they will drain into a collecting duct. It will drain into a collecting duct like this, right? So this is the cortical nephron. Now let us complete our diagram. Here is your afferent arteriole. Look carefully. Here is your afferent arteriole. This is the glomerulus, and then there is the efferent arteriole. Done. And this is the renal corpuscle. This area is the renal corpuscle or Malpighian corpuscle or renal body, right? So this is the glomerulus, right? Or we call it the body of nephron, right? Or we call it the filtrating unit, right? And then what is this? This is the first convoluted part of the nephron, right? Okay, like this. This is the first convoluted part of that nephron, the descending limb of loop of Henle, right? And then it becomes the ascending limb. So this is again the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, right? And then it is the second convoluted part, right? And this goes to a collecting duct. Right, friends. So this nephron is present wholly solely. You can see that the filtrating unit of this nephron, the first convoluted part and the second convoluted part of this nephron is wholly solely present in the cortex. So that's why we call such nephrons as the cortical nephrons, right? So cortical nephrons are those nephrons who are having their glomerulus and first convoluted part, second convoluted part and subcapsular area. That's why we call them as cortical nephrons. So what are cortical nephrons? Let me write here three important points. The glomerulus, right? Glomerulus, the proximal convoluted tubule, the distal convoluted tubule, they are all present in subcapsular area. That's why we call them cortical nephrons. And then there is another nephron which is having the glomerulus, the proximal convoluted part and the second convoluted part in the area which is near to the outer zone of the medulla. We have such nephrons which are having the glomerulus. Let me make diagram here. This is glomerulus or capsule. Then there is what? Then there is the first convoluted part, right? Like this. This is the first convoluted part. Okay, we understand. Then there is the descending limb of loop of Henle, which is very short, which is only in the outer zone of the of the medulla, right? Like this. Then what happens? Then let me make it a little bit thicker to understand the concept. Look, it's a little bit thicker, right? Then in the lower part it becomes thinner, like this, right, friends? And it goes deep into the medulla up to the renal papilla, right? Becomes narrow, and then it makes a loop here. This is called loop of Henle, and again it comes up. So this becomes the ascending limb of loop of Henle, and it goes up to the which part? Up to the outer zone it goes, right? And here it again becomes thick. In the outer zone it becomes thick again, like this, right? And it makes second convoluted part of that nephron. This is the second convoluted part of that nephron, right, friends? Okay, so now we understand it. Now what happens? This is here the this is the afferent arteriole. Let's make this diagram perfect. This is your glomerulus, right? Like this. Now here is your afferent arteriole. Then it makes the bunch, and this is your efferent arteriole, right? So let us clear the diagram. This is the bunch, proximal convoluted part, right? Like this, sorry. And this is the descending limb of loop of Henle, goes down, becomes narrow, right? Like this. It goes up, ascending limb, right? Then it becomes little bit thicker. This is the second convoluted part, right? Like this, right, friends? So now you can see that the glomerular part, the first convoluted part, the second convoluted part, all are present near to the junction of medulla and cortex. This area is the junction between medulla and cortex. That's why this nephron is present near the junction. That's why we call it juxtaglomerular nephrons, right? That's why we call it juxtaglomerular nephron. Okay, I hope you are understanding all these, right? And this is a collecting duct. What is this? This is a collecting duct, a combined collecting duct. Like this. This is a simplified diagram. This is a collecting duct. Now you understand it, right, friends? This is collecting duct. Collecting duct, right? So what is this? This is ascending limb of loop of Henle. This is descending limb. This is loop of Henle, right? And this area is the loop of Henle, right? This is descending limb. This is ascending limb, right? This is proximal convoluted tubule. This is distal convoluted tubule, right? So the difference between the two nephrons is that, look carefully, the juxtaglomerular nephrons are long, right? And the cortical nephrons are little bit short, right? Look, they are wholly solely present in the cortex, right? But the juxtaglomerular nephron have deep parts into the deep medulla and some parts into the cortex. So they are present near to the junction of the cortex and medulla. That's why we call them juxtaglomerular nephrons. So these are the two types of nephrons which are present in your kidneys. You can take picture, and I hope if you have watched the full lecture you can now make the diagram very easily. So the two types of nephrons we discussed. See you guys in the next lecture. We will discuss about the urinary bladder or ureters, right? Till then, Allah Hafiz.